Hi, everyone. My name is Rick Greenwald. I'm with Analysis.Tech, and I'm here with my colleague, Rod Koplowitz, and our special guest today, Robert Stackowiak, author of the recent best-selling book, Design Thinking in Software and AI Design. And the name of this podcast is The Lowdown on Low Code, but as you can already tell from the guest, we're not going to be talking so much about low code, but more about design in low code systems and databases across systems in general. But I've known Robert Stackowiak. I think I'm going to have to call him Bob because I've been calling him Bob for 30 years. Uh, we've written more than 10 books together and have been friends and have seen Bruce Springsteen multiple times together too. So we go way back, and it's such a pleasure to have you here, Bob. And I'm very excited to hear about this recent book, the latest book, and hear the big ideas that it presents. So maybe we can start by talking about that whole idea of design thinking. It's an approach to creating systems. And could you give us a very brief overview of design thinking, what it is, and how it applies to the systems you're talking about?
Sure, and I'll start here with a bit of history. Um, when I originally was looking for a methodology or an approach, this was because I was doing customer briefings at a couple large tech firms, Oracle and Microsoft, and oftentimes it was the first time that the IT folks and the business folks got together in any formal fashion. And what became evident was that we needed to do some discovery to link what the business requirements were within that organization and what the technology folks were working on. Along the way, I found design thinking, which was originally developed from Stanford University, as a recipe for actually doing this discovery and then finding out what solutions should be prioritized up front. So design thinking itself is an approach where you can bring together all the stakeholders, the executives, the frontline business decision makers, the technology folks, even customers and partners, if that's needed for certain solutions, and come up with which problems should be solved first, second, and third, and then come up with potential solutions to those problems. So basically, the process is what's called a double diamond approach. You
Mhm.
begin with problem space discovery and definition. You might come up with dozens of problems, but you'll find that certain problems will become more important depending on your prioritization, be it return on investment or risk to the organization. Once you determine what you're going to work on first, then you go into the solution space development side, where again, you may come up with multiple potential solutions to a given problem, but then you'll figure out which solution or solutions you're going to initially pursue. And those might be based on how much they're going to cost, skills in the organization, speed to return on investment, et cetera. Each organization and each problem are probably going to have different prioritizations. And from that, then you can work on your prototypes and eventually your production solutions.
So, Bob, is if we've got to apply this to design thinking principles to, to database design, to application design, a lot of what we're interested in here is kind of rapid application design, low code, vibe coding approaches. How does the process change when we apply design thinking to it?
Yeah. So again, I would say that the most important thing here is that you're going to figure out the problem to be solved. And that problem is going to have certain data that's going to be needed to solve the problem. The type of data that you actually have will likely drive the database, the data store that you're going to be required to use, be it a structured or unstructured data store, as well as the kind of tools that you're going to layer on top to provide the solution. And as you go about that design, you're going to test that with the audience that came up with the desired solution to make sure that they're on board. And then you'll figure out the delivery mechanism as well with them, be it alerts or dashboards or in AI parlance today, intelligent agents that might be embedded in applications to actually take action. And the other thing I'll say about that is design thinking isn't something that you use just once. After you've delivered a solution or in the process, you may do other workshops to figure out if you're still going in the right direction or if there are other problems that have risen to the top of the organization that need to be solved.
Right. Rick?
That's so interesting, Bob, because I was thinking about this just the other day. A lot of times we don't talk about initial release and then maintenance releases and stuff. And typically, maintenance releases are things where you just go and fix problems that were there in the initial area. But because the environment that you're addressing, the context you're addressing is always changing, I thought, no, go back and revisit the problems you were addressing, see if they've changed, and see if that changes how you work through it. Is that a part of the design thinking flow too?
Yeah, it certainly can be. And it's probably a best practice, actually.
Well, that brings up the other part of this question I wanted to ask about best practice. When you're going through these things, I'm going, yeah, okay, good idea. Yeah, okay, good idea. But obviously, it's a slightly different form, a slightly different flow. How does that compare and contrast with more traditional application and database development in the best case and the worst case?
Ah, so as far as the approach itself, it is there's a lot of involvement from the various stakeholders during the problem prioritization and the solution determination. And generally, what they're doing is they're posting ideas that they have along the way, what's most important to them, et cetera. And then there's a group think that goes on that goes through a prioritization as far as what goes to the top and such. So it's a lot more interactive than a simple interview process that you might have in an application design. And it's also a lot more collaborative so that not only are people understanding what's being determined, but how the determination took place. And so that leads to greater buy-in oftentimes because people start to understand the trade-offs that are being discussed. And that's extremely important for long-term success of these projects.
I think what also may happen, my guess is that you may end up with different people involved in this process. It's not people who it's their job and they just have to do it. It's people who are actively involved in coming up with the solutions. And what an accelerator to coming up with the good answer to have those people involved rather than people who are doing it through rote.
Yeah, as I said earlier, the stakeholders, should include not only the senior execs, but also the frontline business folks who are actually making use of the data and making key decisions, and of course the technology folks. So everybody gets involved in this.
It would always blow my mind when I would talk to clients and I'd be talking to IT and I say, when do you talk to end users? They go, oh, we never talk to them. They don't know what they're talking. It's like, you do know that they're going to determine if you succeed or not. You do know that, right? It's a bad approach. So that's terrific. Rob, you want to tell the folks a little bit about analysis.tech and the wonderful things that we do for the world?
Yeah. So, folks, if you like what you're listening to, if you like Lowdown on Low Code, which may be getting rebranded slightly at some point in the near future, but it will be the same format and the same types of guests. But follow us, hit the like button, help us get the word out to like-minded folks who are looking at helping businesses solve solutions faster and at lower cost. If you want to interact with analysis.tech, you can find us. It's as simple as analysis.tech. You can find Rick and I there, John Reimer, Francis Carden, Andy Bartels, and Dave Marcus, all excited to talk to you about the stuff that we do here at analysis.tech. Rick, back to you.
Thanks, Rob. Well, it comes time now. We're more than halfway through this presentation, and we haven't settled on AI yet. There's a requirement. You have to talk about AI all the time. So, Bob, I know your book is talking about creating software and AI systems. You want to talk about how this is especially appropriate or less appropriate for AI systems as opposed to traditional software?
Yeah, so let me begin with what I think AI is.
Ooh,
Artificial intelligence.
always a risky area.
Well, artificial intelligence, the terminology dates back to the 1950s, actually. And the idea was that eventually computers could do everything or mimic what humans can do so that you can't really tell the difference. And along the way, we had various technologies that became more and more sophisticated. So as a result, the solutions became more and more sophisticated. We had things like data warehousing, data mining and machine learning, big data, and now we've got what's being called AI, which most often is large language models. Um, Design thinking actually can be applied for all of these. And the problem that all of these technologies have had in the past is that many organizations took a build it and they will come approach to this stuff, which resulted in a lot of early failures with the technology. And interestingly enough, the organizations that figured out how to bridge the business requirements and the technology were the ones who were most successful at each of these steps along the way. So there's a common trend here in that if in fact you do link what are the business problems that are to be solved to the technology, then you're more likely to deliver a successful project. And that's certainly true for AI as well. The other thing that this drives that we talked about earlier was a determination of what data is needed. So you start to get into discussions along the lines of, do I have the right data? Is it quality data? Do I need to additionally support that with data that we need to develop or obtain from third-party sources? Do we have data in silos in our organization that we need to pull into this stuff, which AI itself would have a hard time figuring out? So all of this becomes very much a data-driven kind of solutioning behind the scenes.
Hey, Bob, let's talk a little bit about these organizational silos, right? So one of the promises of design thinking is it's not only going to help IT, it's not only going to help the business get to better solutions, but it's breaking down a lot of silos. I mean, software development has never been a place where we've really thought of it as a highly collaborative effort, right? Like I think one of our colleagues, Ryan Dugan, calls it having software done to you, right? Or being so. How does this help from an organizational standpoint, not just for IT, but for the entirety of the organization, to really drive consensus and collaboration around driving business solutions and business innovation and business optimization?
Yeah, and I would agree with that earlier statement. A lot of times when I've run these workshops or had these discussions, it's the first time that the software developers and other technology folks have been in front of senior execs and vice versa. So what this really does is it doesn't result in a reorganization as such, but it gets everybody talking together and gets folks collaborating together. And what it tends to eliminate is technology going way down the road, developing a solution that nobody really wants to use because it doesn't really solve any of the business problems. So it shortcuts that whole process. It results in more successful projects as a result.
So, Bob, when we marry this with things like low code, where low code and vibe, we're increasingly seeing the business putting their fingers on the keyboard and developing solutions, and Is that going to be a major accelerator to how we get to these solutions where the business can start to, rather than just participate, drive innovative thinking and become a much deeper participant?
Yeah, I believe that's true, but I also believe that the nature of what people do on the technology side somewhat changes. There is this whole area of data quality and data sourcing and such that I don't know that the business necessarily wants expertise in, whereas the technology folks should have expertise there, along with things like data governance, data privacy, all those sorts of things. So I think the roles are somewhat going to change within the organizations. And one of the things I do every year is teach a class at the University of Dayton, and um, I've talked to them about how it's important for their futures. This is a data warehousing class, by the way, that they collaborate with the business folks and use discovery processes and help the business folks in developing these solutions, because operating in a silo in the future is going to be much less relevant as time goes on.
Thanks, Bob. Rick? Rick,
Yes.
over to you.
All right. Well, Bob, this has been really interesting and really revealing. Sometimes I think we're old. We're all old guys here, right? And we've been going through this and frankly seeing it fail for many, many, many years. So I try and leaven that kind of cynicism that comes with that years of experience with the idea that, yeah, we're still not doing it right. Let's try another approach to make this work out better. And it sounds like design thinking can be a new way to get a handle on this, but will produce importantly, qualitatively better results. One of the great things here is one of the focuses of low code is typically rapid application development. But what you're talking about, Bob, is quality application development, quality systems that will provide more business value and be of more use. And that trumps speed every time. So it's great to hear about that. I recommend you all um, go get Bob's book on design thinking in software and AI systems. I'm not going to say it's Bob's best book because he didn't write it with me, but I mean, I'm sure all of Bob's books are very, very good. And I think it'll give you some new insights and help you to work with your teams better. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for attending and coming to this podcast currently known as the Lowdown on Low Code. And we look forward to seeing you in the future. Rob, you have any closing words?
Just thanks everybody for joining. Check out Bob's new book and check us out at analysis.tech.